right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Head to Head Sports. I'm your host, Brian Parker, along with my co-host, Mr. Randall Hargrove. How you doing, sir? Where is he? There he is.
Woo!
Woo!
How about him?
How about him? Oh gosh. I should have had my Dennis Green clip ready that said they are who we thought they were. They are who we thought they were. Oh God.
Man.
I'm gonna have to have that. Andrew Hall, welcome to the show. Jermaine Parker, welcome to the show. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Head to Head Sports. Again, I'm Brian Parker along with Randall Hargrove, and we are streaming live on Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as YouTube. You can always go to Lord have mercy, Empower TV on YouTube. Also on Amazon Fire TV as well as Roku. We are streaming live on all of those channels. So thank you guys for tuning in. We certainly appreciate it. Matter of fact, I was refreshing my Roku and I didn't finish while I was looking at it. Make sure we really are streaming live. Yes, we are. We are streaming live on Roku. Very cool. So we are going to look at crazy week 5 in the NFL. And, Rand, with the Cowboys at it, I guess we can open up and talk about these daggum raggedy Cowboys that thought they were going to come into San Francisco. Man, the thing, Rand, and I don't know, I think the NFL does this on purpose now. I think they purposely, knowingly schedule really cupcake games for the Cowboys at the very beginning of the year.
Get everybody's hopes up.
So the Cowboy fans will sit there and get their hopes up, or start feeling a lot better about themselves than they should, only to wait until 4 or 5 games into the season for reality hit. Now, I don't think they figured Arizona to be the first stumbling block. I really think they expected a 4-0 Dallas to come and be a 4-0 San Francisco and then duke it out there. Arizona kind of put a little stumbling in that, but nonetheless, they are who I thought they were. and before people start to say, well, they ain't got Trayvon Diggs and all of that. I'm sorry, but here's the problem with that, Cowboy fans. Trayvon Diggs don't throw the ball. At all. And the problem that you guys had on Sunday wasn't so much the defense. Well, it was defense too, but the guy on the Cowboys side seemed to want to throw y'all the ball too. It seemed like he wasn't satisfied with how many touchdowns Brock Purdy was throwing to the 49ers. He felt like he wanted to throw a couple of them himself to the 49ers. But there were so many things that went down in this game. Of course, the final score 42-10. And let's be clear, it could have been more than that. They took out Brock Purdy. He didn't play in the fourth quarter. Sam Darnold did. And it wasn't that and at that point, they basically just said, Sam Darnold, you hand the ball off. And even on 4th down, we'll just go for it so the clock will keep running so we can get the hell up out of here. Trust me. If they wanted to, they could have hung 50 on them. Easy.
Absolutely. They put 14 in the final quarters.
Yeah.
Dallas didn't score anything.
On you. They really could have.
That was the most physical beatdown that I've ever seen in this league. Man. I did not get to see the 70-20 game. So,
yes,
but I watched that 49er Dallas game, and it's been a long time since I've seen the Cowboys, they call themselves a physical team, get out physical to that level.
I mean, how many games? And even though he is going to be a great player, how many games have you actually seen? And when I say this, it would almost sound like hyperbole any other time. But Michael Parsons was neutralized.
Did you say neutralized?
Neutralized.
Yes.
You didn't hear his name.
No.
You didn't hear uh 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 half of these defensive guys names come up that normally come up, whether it's Van Der Esch, whether it's now Lord, I can't think of his name now. Big dude on the defensive side. Oh my
I
God.
mean, they were damn near vaporized.
Yeah, they were. They were. They took their lunch money, and you're right. San Francisco, and this was said leading up to this game. San Francisco is a very physical team. A true measure is what do you do when a team smacks you in the mouth? How do you act and how do you respond then? Every hit San Francisco made, they put a little something into it to really see what these Cowboy players were going to do. You
Yeah.
let George Kittle sit there and set records or tie records as far as George Kittle had 67 yards receiving, 3 receptions, all 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
All
man.
3 passes he caught were touchdowns.
It's like the Cowboys' whole game plan was to go out there and control McCaffrey, which I guess they did to a certain extent because he only had maybe like 50, 60 some total yards. So good job on that. The problem is they just started handing it off to the other guy who started ripping them straight up the butthole.
Jordan Mason, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you did. I mean, you kept McCaffrey at 51 receiving. 51 rushing, 27 receiving. But the thing was, and he was only getting 2.7 yards a carry. But that wears on you over and over and over. He had 19 carries though. So yeah, he only got 51 out of it. But when you think about it, that did a couple of different things. Number one, when you sit there and you keep banging and banging to in the run game like that, you control time of possession, which they did. 37 minutes to Dallas's 22 minutes. That is going to go a long way because what do? You're taking the air out of the ball. So when Dallas can't get a running game going, and now they're playing from behind, there's no time. Now he's got to take more gambles and put the ball in harm's way, which he obliged. I laughed because I watched First Take right before that game where Stephen A. Smith and Swagoo were sitting there, and Stephen A. was sitting there talking about.
Oh, you knocked yourself on mute, homie. Can't hear you. Nope. No audio.
Got it.
All right, gotcha.
Always puts me on mute when I do that. So anyway, Swagoo and Stephen A. He was laughing at him because he said, "Yeah, I think he's going to throw 2 interceptions over the next 4 games, every game." And it was funny because he did it. And as soon as he threw the second one, I just hollered because I was like, "Oh my gosh, dude said he was going to throw 2 interceptions." And before I could even sit there and blink, he threw the third one. Anthony says Leighton Van Der Esch needs to retire. Neck injuries are not good to play around with. Yeah, he's been going on and on with that, and they really sat there and neutralized him too. Van Der Esch did not do anything, man. D-Law, Demarcus Lawrence, you ain't hear nothing about D-Law out there. You didn't hear nothing about Michael Parsons out there. You didn't hear anything about Stephon Gilmore out there. I mean, Dan Quinn is supposed to be the guru, the guy to turn down head coaching jobs to come back and get this defense going. The plays that they called, CeeDee Lamb, really was not a factor in this game at all. Lamb had CeeDee Lamb had 4 receptions for 49 yards. And it could be said, okay, well, he took the number one on their side and they took him out. But then the rest of the players didn't do anything either. Tony Pollard was the next leading receiver, 4 receptions for 35 yards. He's your running back. Not even the tight end, Jake Ferguson, didn't do anything. 3 receptions, 28 yards. Gallup, 2 receptions for 15 yards. Brandon Cooks, who's supposed to be your stretch receiver, your speedy receiver, 1 reception for 7 yards.
What kind of no joke? That defense is no joke, man.
At all.
And we could talk about the turnovers as well, because turnovers are the game changers to just about every game.
Oh
When
my
you throw the ball away 3 different times, and then you look at Brock Purdy, who goes a perfect 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions,
none.
250 some yards, 17 out of 24 completions. Man, I mean, you could just read the stats and tell who won the ball game.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Purdy's thrown an interception all year. If I'm not mistaken.
Purdy
Uh,
is an amazing. He's an amazing quarterback. He's an amazing story. I mean, Mr. Irrelevant to where he's at right now is just crazy, man.
yeah, yeah, he's thrown 9 touchdowns to no picks this year.
Crazy.
He has a 123% passer rating.
Yep. And some people at the beginning of the year wanted to call him a game manager and that type of deal. That dude is not a game managing quarterback. He goes out and wins games, and San Francisco is succeeding right now because of him.
Right.
It's not the other way around.
Rand, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was kind of one of those that wondered if he was a game manager, but I watched some of the throws he threw. Those weren't game manager throws. I watched him throw into some really tight coverages and got the ball to his guys because of the accuracy that he had.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I noticed about Brock Purdy is he doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's very precise. He goes through his reads. He doesn't jump on his reads. There were a couple of times when I saw where Dak sat there before letting the player complete the route or come to the height, what we call the height of the route, where you climb the route. So routes can start at different points where when a player breaks into the route, that's not where you're going to throw him the ball. He has to give the move, the second move, the double move, whatever it is, to then come out of the route into the high point of the route. And that's where you're supposed to get him the ball. I saw Dak on a lot of those when I looked at the way the receiver was running the route. That wasn't where the ball was supposed to go. So he wasn't trusting his eyes and trusting what he was seeing out there because he was trying to throw too quick. Now, a crazy pass rush will do that to you. So I'm not going to say he was doing it for no reason. A pass rush will mess up your timing like that if it's really, really good and stout like that. So he heard footsteps coming, so it sped up the clock in his head, and he wasn't letting the receivers climb their routes a lot of times to do that. It wasn't a matter of drop balls and stuff like that, like it had been before. It was the simple fact that he was throwing too early on some of their routes.
It was that, and just completely getting out physical. If you go back and watch some of that game tape, you see Brandon Ayuk, a wide receiver out there, pushing around defensive backs, blocking like he's an offensive lineman.
Right.
And I'm talking well after the play is even over. He's still blocking and putting guys into the ground as a wide receiver.
I saw that.
San Francisco is physical as hell, man. And enough can't be said about the job that Brock Purdy is doing. You talked a little bit about Prescott. I think we've seen the best that Prescott has. I think that he peaked a couple of seasons ago, maybe 2 years ago, and now he's on the downward side of his career. That's so just what I'm watching.
I'm going to ask you about Dak in 2 seconds. I'm going to read what Anthony says. Michael Gallup ain't the same after the injury. You know, Anthony, I'm going to be honest with you. I agree, but then I don't know because of the way that I think he's being utilized in the offense. I do agree. Once a player has an ACL injury, the next year coming back from that injury, most of them aren't the same. I've rarely seen players just bounce right back after ACLs. Now I see them out there, but they look like a shell of themselves. I'll give you a good example. Chris Godwin last year didn't seem like the Chris Godwin because the year before he had an ACL.
Where's Odell Beckham Jr. this year?
Yeah, exactly. You kind of see if they are going to bounce back. It's normally not that year after they rehab because it's a whole process when you're a receiver that does a lot of cuts off your legs and stuff like that to really trust that when you put that leg into the ground, it's going to hold you up like it needs to be. He says, example, OBJ waste of money.
Complete.
Well, but you know what, though? that really wasn't a waste of money in the fact that nobody else went after him. Baltimore did that almost to appease Lamar Jackson. I think because nobody else was anywhere near going to offer Odell that kind of money. Baltimore did that foolishness trying to appease Lamar Jackson, I believe. I
And
think
their
they nailed
fans.
it.
They
Right.
sold their fans a lot of false hope.
Yeah.
And we talked about this early in the year. I made the point of this before the season even started that Odell was not going to come back and be the same explosive
Right.
Odell that we saw with the Giants back in the days, making ridiculous one-handed catches and taking the tops off of defenses. He ain't that dude no more, man.
He ain't been that dude. He wasn't that dude when he was with the Rams.
He sure was not. So for all the Baltimore fans that were all excited that we finally got a number one receiver for no, you didn't. And it's
No,
being proven that you didn't.
right. That was a waste of money because people sat there and hyped up who Odell was. But most of the league had already figured out, is Odell useful? Is he serviceable? Yes, as a number 3, but he was never going to be a number 1. Couldn't be a number 2 because number 1, health wise, you couldn't keep depend on him to stay healthy. Anthony also said that I think Brock Purdy moved up for MVP odds. Maybe, but there's another guy on his team that is heavily vying for that, and that would be one Christian McCaffrey. Regardless of how many carries, how many yards per run that he got in this past game, this guy has just been on a tear. Most people are once they leave Carolina, but that's a whole nother story. And then Jermaine says, torn my ACL in 2001 kept me out of the league. That's good enough, Jermaine. I'm glad you're doing better and that you recovered and you found something that you really love doing with your life. But yeah, so ACLs will definitely do that to you. Anthony says true, but MVP don't go to nobody else but a quarterback. Yeah, that's true. But what has to happen is if it doesn't go to somebody that's not a quarterback, it almost has to be somebody that's just hands down dominating. And when you think about McCaffrey, he dominates in so many different ways. And you know, I love the fact that Kyle Shanahan isn't afraid to use guys in different ways, whether it's a running back that can then get into the slot and those kind of things. He's just a Swiss Army knife. He's a football player. Yes, he's a running back because he has that skill set, but the guy can get in the slot. The guy gets in the motion. Shanahan gets the most out of him. I like coaches that can take a player and get the most out of him. If Kyle Shanahan had Brandon Cooks on his team, I think they would sit there and burn people left and right, just because of the motions and the things that they use to get these guys open. You got a speedy guy that's supposed to blow the top off. He can blow the top off still, but McCarthy did not use him that way. When he's supposed to be your speediest guy and he only gets one reception for 7 yards, you're not using him the right way. So, Rand, I'm going to ask you this because I did hear this come up and been thinking about it because Dak is currently, I think, in the $40 million range as far as salaries. I pulled up the salaries. Dak is currently, Lord, what happened to my salaries? Oh, Lord. All right. I have to go back and find it in a second. Here it is, the list of salaries. Now, because this is a final year, I think, of his extended contract, so he's only a cap hit of about $26 million this year. But his overall contract was bigger than that. I think it was like $42 million a year. So should the Cowboys move on from Dak, or should they give him another extension? Now, here's the problem. Because they do finish with a decent enough record, the question is, well, if you move on from Dak, who are you going to replace him with? Or are you looking to draft another quarterback? Because the question has been this: Brock Purdy, I think, is going to make $900,000 this year. And the 49ers are potentially going to be a Super Bowl contender, or at least have a really, really good chance of getting to the Super Bowl. When the Kansas City Chiefs went to 2 Super Bowls, Patrick Mahomes hadn't gotten the bag yet. There are a lot of instances where young players that are still in their rookie deals, Jalen Hurts, before he got his bag over the summer, had taken his team to the NFC Championship game on a rookie contract. Carson Wentz had taken team deep on his rookie contract. Uh, a lot of teams, and I said this before, a lot of teams are seeing that when you end up paying these quarterbacks all this money, you have to then give up some other things in other positions because of the salary cap. Your quarterback is accounting for, a quarter of your salary cap. That means you have less funds to spend on other players. So the question is this: you said Dak has peaked and he's starting to come down. Should the Cowboys move on from Dak?
Cowboys, in my opinion, will move on from that. I don't see them re-signing him. I don't see them re-upping him for another multi-year deal. They traded for Trey Lance for a reason. I think that Jerry Jones is intrigued by quarterbacks with mobility. Trey Lance is definitely that if you don't have nothing else. So, yeah, I think we're seeing the final days of Dak. And I know that Jerry Jones loves him, but I will be surprised to see Dak back next year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Anthony did say that Jermaine says a kicker wants one MVP. Okay. Yeah, Jerry Jones loves Dak. He's not going nowhere. I don't know what was the point in trading for Trey Lance. Well, Anthony, he loves you till he doesn't because he also drafted Zeke.
Love them too.
Loved him. Loved him like a son. There was even talk that even after they had released him in the offseason that maybe they would sit there and maybe bring him back for a veteran minimum or something like that. And that just did not happen. Jerry does have a special place for players that he drafts. I will say that. I think it was easier for him to let Amari Cooper go because he had obtained him from the Raiders. He didn't draft him, even though I can kind of say he probably wishes that he paid Amari the $20 million and kept CD as a strong number 2. But even with all that said, I agree with you, Rand. I just don't see how he justifies keeping Dak because Dak is a decent quarterback, but he's not going to be the quarterback that's going to get you to where you want to go. Most quarterbacks that are going to get you to where you want to go are always the guys that I call force multipliers. Those are the guys that can take an average guy in a position a lot of times and elevate them. You saw Tom Brady do this time and time again with no-name receivers that he would just kind of put them on his back and lead them to Super Bowls and AFC Championship games. He was able to do that regardless of the receiver, regardless of the offensive line, and all these other things. If anybody thinks Tom Brady played 21 seasons and always had great offensive lines, then that is just straight foolishness. But a lot of times when you have a quarterback like a Brock Purdy, Brock didn't get sacked one time, I don't think. Not one time. I don't think he did. I'll have to double check that, but I don't think Brock Purdy got touched in that game. Let me see. Cowboys defense, sacks. Yeah, he did. Curse got him once. He got him one time. I stand corrected. But there's a lot of zeros on the defensive stats, so it was easy to see that one. Jaron Curse got him one time. It looks like that was it. That's a pretty clean game. Because he was able to get the ball out of his hands very quickly. He went through all of his reads, found hot reads. It was just amazing watching him process that game. It's funny to believe that he was Mr. Irrelevant because he's playing like a top tier quarterback. I would say he is a top tier quarterback. Most people would have said that the quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers is the weakest position on the team.
Not no more.
and even if it is, all that means is that they don't really have a lot of weaknesses on their team. If he's the weakest, damn. because the weakest position on that team sat there and went 17 to 24 for 252 and 4 touchdowns. So if he the weakest thing on your team, and y'all don't want him no more, please send him to Carolina today.
Yeah,
I think
man. I think
we're ready for that.
you know, now my opinion will change, of course, if Dak is somehow able to right the ship and, of course, lead the Cowboys into a deep. It's going to take actually more than just getting to the playoffs, man, because he's been there, done that.
Yeah,
He's really going to have to get them to at least the NFC Championship game to change my mind. And the way he's playing right now, throwing up a bunch of interceptions to Arizona's of the world and getting dominated by San Francisco, if it continues like this, no, I don't see a resign. I think they're going to go with the youth movement, kind of like they did with Ezekiel, and let Dak go. I think Dak's best days are behind him. The Super Bowl windows for teams are very narrow, usually. I know Kansas City's been going on for a long time, and Buffalo too. But Dallas is, I think they, as a team, peaked maybe 2 years ago when they got to the playoffs and San Fran knocked them out of the game when Dak, stupidly ran the ball and tried to spike it at the end of the game and get one more playoff. I think that was the peak of Dallas right there, and they started coming down the hill at that point.
That's right. That's right. Now, two more things with that. Do you think the expectation for Mike McCarthy being able to keep his job is just as high, that he can't just simply back into the playoffs? He can't simply it's going to be hard for him to win the division. But barring not winning the division and having to go into the wild card, they've done that. For Mike McCarthy to keep his job, is it NFC Championship game, or are they going to be looking for another coach too?
Possibly, man. You never know with Jerry, man. It's just he seems to be swayed by public opinion a lot when it comes to coaches and his hires. So,
yeah,
if a whole lot of negative things start falling down on McCarthy's head, then yeah, his head could be chopped as well.
I feel that way because he removed Kellen Moore from the equation and said, you know what? He basically insinuated without publicly saying, I feel like having Kellen Moore call the offensive plays stagnated our offense. Okay, well, Kellen Moore is no longer there, so who you gonna blame for the play calling now? Because you're the play caller. So right. in a lot of ways, if you bet on yourself and it pays off, that's one thing. If you bet on yourself and it backfires, you're exposed. You have a target on your back. I think by doing that, he really put a target on his back by saying, hey, if we don't improve exponentially as an offense, I don't have anybody to blame but myself, because now I'm the one that's meeting with the quarterback. Now I'm the last voice that the quarterback hears in his ear before the headset goes dead. So whatever play he has in his head, I'm the one that gave it to him.
Yeah, it's kind of like Matt Rule when he fired Joe Brady.
Exactly. Exactly. Then it was like, okay, you got no more bullets in the chamber because you done used them all. So it's really all on you. And if this doesn't move, then you can't say, well, he called the play. Even though you're the head coach, I never understood that anyway. But you say, well, he's the one that called the play. Well, hell, you the head coach. Override it or meet with him in halftime and say, hey, bro, I'm gonna need more runs. I'm gonna need more of this. I'm gonna need more of that. I'm gonna need some more exotic stuff. Let's get some reverses. Let's get some motion or whatever kind of things. You're the head coach. You out there on the field. You can see it. I know you got to manage the whole game, not just the offense. You got special teams and you got different scenarios where you got different packages and things like that. So you have to make sure players are going in. You got people making sure that you don't have too many men on field and all that kind of stuff. And the head coach, you just managing it all. But you decide you're going to be the play caller. That's a whole nother thing. And lastly, I'll say, a lot of people have wondered if Jerry would be willing to rebuild for the simple fact that he's up there in age and he wants a win now team. They don't feel like Jerry is going to be around long enough for a full rebuild. So it's almost like you're trying to build the plane while it's in the air. because you don't have time for the plane to land, to refuel, and then get back up off the ground, because the pilot might not make it that long. Um, so the question is are they really going to try to move on from Dak and bring in somebody else that then puts them more in a rebuilding? Because here's the whole thing: you got a lot of components on your team that is built for a win now. Michael Parsons is coming up for a contract. CeeDee Lamb is coming up for a contract. Trayvon Diggs is coming up for a contract. Um, are you going to then bring in a new guy that then has to go through his lumps and his growing pains with the team? Or do you sit there and hope that you can throw a little bit of duct tape on Dak and by some miracle hope that you win in spite of who your quarterback is, not because of who your quarterback is? Can you win in the league today like that?
It's going
By
to be
trying
an
to hide the
interesting.
quarterback?
It's going to be an interesting rest of the season, man, with Dallas to see, because I mean, we're right here watching it live. It is happening in front of our eyes. Dak could either go one way or the other for the rest of the year. I think he's. I don't know, man. I just don't feel that he's going to get back to being that monster quarterback that's capable of putting up 300-yard games and 3 and 4 touchdown games anymore. I don't see that at all with him,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So I think he's going to continue to decline. And if that is the case, we're looking at a Dallas team that's not going to fare very well in the NFC East.
I agree. And then, lastly, I'll say too is the thing that I've always said about the Cowboys is this: when you make them have to play from behind,
Not the
it's
same
over.
team.
It's over because they cannot sit there and try to catch up from behind, because that's when now you're putting it. Because if you're going to try to hide your quarterback, then you got to have enough of a defensive game where it's a low scoring game. But by halftime, it was already 21-7. And now they're starting to feel the pressure of trying to get chunks and chunks back. Running game wasn't going anywhere. Now you're putting it in the quarterback's hands, and obviously that was not a good outcome for them. So, Cowboy fans, lick your wounds. I had some people posting on my Facebook talking about we ain't going nowhere, still proud, and this and that and the other. But I can honestly say I could tell that the Cowboys lost this week because my Facebook has been pretty clean. I've seen a couple of the rebels out there trying to act like, oh, we still good, we still them boys, but for the most part, it's been pretty darn quiet. And for that,
Yeah, man. My Facebook has been a desert. I haven't seen no Cowboy fans nowhere, and it's been glorious.
Anthony said, "Ain't this the time of the year the Cowboys fall off?" No, it's the
Not
time they
quite.
start to decline a little bit. You start to see little chinks in the chain, so to speak. But it's normally right around the third week of November where they start to fall out. Right before Thanksgiving, they turn into some turkeys, and then that's when they fall out.
Yeah.
And then December, they still kind of got a chance to make the playoffs, but they're gonna back into it. But it's already foregone conclusion that even if they limp into the playoffs, they're not gonna do a whole lot. So it's getting close. But I will tell you this: September is definitely the month that everybody think they still gonna win the Super Bowl, because they normally beat up on the Giants and some other team that isn't very good at all. Oh man, we put up 40 points. Man, we put up 50 points. Yeah, then you got smacked in the mouth and you put up 10.
So they got an important game already this young season. They go to LA to play the Chargers Monday
Another
Night
Monday
Football.
night game. Yes, sir.
That is a super, super important game to right the ship. And like I said, it could literally go one way or the other with Dak, man. And I don't know. It's going to be a good one to see. It's going to be a tough one to call and a good
Well,
one to
it's gonna
see.
be good too, because now you got Kellen Moore calling plays for the Chargers. Now,
Yeah.
do you think Kellen Moore is gonna look at that as just another game, or do you think that Kellen Moore had that game circled for quite some time?
Circle since he left there.
He probably said, "When we play them, oh, okay, bet we'll be ready." Kellen Moore gonna eat on the Cowboys defense. You better damn believe it. You better believe it. Now, Kellen Moore also knows Dan Quinn's defense, because he's had to go against him in practice and stuff like that. So Kellen Moore has firsthand seen the defense even though he don't call the defense, he may know defensive tendencies and what they like to do and things like that. So he may be able to give, especially somebody like a Justin Herbert, some insight as to what those guys like to do, how they like to line up, what part, how do you take what San Francisco did as far as neutralizing Micah Parsons and do that again, so that Micah seems more worried about a shirt that you want under your jersey than to play on the field. Um, he more worried about Kittle having the F the Cowboys shirt on than the fact they was getting smacked in the mouth, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, like, bro, worry about the right stuff, you know. But he's still young; he'll figure that out. That, you know, that really wasn't what you needed to worry about, bro. But moving on from the Cowboys, we did have a Monday Night Football game with the Raiders and the Packers, which actually ended up, you know, I picked the Packers to win the game because I didn't think Garoppolo was playing in that game. But it ended up being a pretty tight game. Jordan Love sat so long behind Aaron Rodgers. This by far was his worst game in the season. He threw 3 interceptions. Up to that point, I think he'd only thrown 3 the entire year. So he doubled that up just playing on Monday night. But that was a back and forth game. It was an ugly game, but sometimes you got to win those ugly games. And now they both stand at 2-3. I still don't really see the Packers doing anything in their division. However, now with Minnesota losing Justin Jefferson for at least 4 games, if they did put him on IR, I know they were talking about doing it. That could give the Packers some opportunity to try to move up into second place.
It could. I was really, really disappointed by Love in that game, man. It's like, come on, dude. He kept on targeting Christian Watson over and over and over again. And it wasn't like Watson was out there like dominating the game like he's the cheetah or something like that.
Mhm.
I mean, he did break loose for a couple, but I don't think he had 5 catches the whole game. And you're sitting there targeting this guy. 3 catches.
3
And
catches.
it just doesn't make any sense. You have Dallas on the other side who was open. I saw him open on TV a couple of times. So even his last throw of the game, he threw it and it got picked off. He was targeting Christian Watson again. So I don't know what happened with Love that game, but yeah, he needs to straighten that out. That was terrible.
Yeah, LaFleur's got to get back in his head and say, "Hey, man, you can't get look. He's not Devontae Adams.
I'm saying
You can't sit there and just gaze on him all game and force feed it to him. Reminds me of the whole Jake Delhomme, Steve Smith days where he acted like Smitty was the only person on the field, and damn it, I'm gonna throw it in the triple coverage if I have to because I just trust he gonna come down with the ball, and that's what he did at the end of the game, trying to act like that 50-50 ball was going, his receiver was gonna go up there and get it. And you can't do that. You have to, again, the difference between watching Jordan Love and watching Brock Purdy is going through those progression. Take what the defense is giving you. Don't try to force a bunch of stuff in there. You do not have that kind of touch, bro. Not that you won't ever get it, but if you don't have that kind of touch where you can just lay it in somebody's bread basket like that in double and triple coverage, go with the throws that they're giving you. You know,
you use this term hero ball a lot, and that is where it really applied. Was that Monday night game? He was really out there playing hero ball, trying to win the game off of one play, and kept on getting picked off when he had other open guys out there. So that was just disappointing effort for him.
Anthony says, I lost respect for the Packers that game. Having Preston Smith guarding Devontae Adams, shaking my head. And I'll get to your other comment too about Kirk Cousins. Says, I feel sorry for Kirk Cousins. He's trying the best to win, and his defense is laying an egg.
Yeah, that defense is terrible.
I agree with that. But yeah, so very, very hard fought game. Like I said, it was an ugly game. It went back and forth. I really thought the Packers still had a chance to win it. And if Jordan Love had probably played a better all around game, it's very likely that they would have won that game. You also saw Zach Wilson come back against Russell Wilson and actually have a better Zach Wilson game. I mean, you got to put it in perspective. The New York Jets did beat the Denver Denver Broncos 31-21. Some people called it a revenge game since Nathaniel Hackett used to be the head coach. Then Sean Payton decided to weigh in on what kind of mess Nathaniel Hackett had left and the coaching style and everything else. So everybody trying to make it seem like um, that's what it was. Let me tell you what it was. It was Brees Hall, 22 carries for 177 yards. I know that because somebody had him on the fantasy team that played me, and he had like 70 points.
Ouch.
Eat my ass.
Oh,
Also, the same person, that same said person also had Jamar Chase on their team too. And he went wild this past week. So yeah, I got it handed to me on fantasy. I'm like, are you serious? Oh, I'm sorry. And he also had Zach Moss.
oh Lord, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You didn't stand a chance, brother.
It was a freaking bloodbath. I didn't even look at it no more. I just turned it off and said, why? I mean, there's no way I could come back. Everybody else remaining on my team would have to have like 60 points. Like it's not gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen.
We're talking about quarterbacks whose better days are behind them. We could also talk about Russell Wilson, man. It's over, man. It's over. If the Broncos think or thought at any point that they were getting the Seahawks version of Russ,
it's the same people that thought they were getting the New York Giant version of OBJ.
Yep.
Definitely. And I don't even know at this point, is it a Sean Payton thing or if it's a Russell Wilson thing. I just think Russell Wilson, he's definitely on the decline. He's not that guy. And the sad thing is that he's getting paid like he's that guy because he is averaging $48 million in salary. He's in the top 5 in average. The cap hit is a little bit better, but as far as actual annual average value, you're looking at 48.5 in salary.
That is just tearing the cap up, and they ain't getting no goods for their money, man. It's like
that's just insane.
It's like being upside down in a car.
It is. I mean, that negative equity, did they talk about that? Your $48 million quarterback got you a 1-4 record.
It's not going to get better either.
But the quarterback on one of the only 2 undefeated teams in the league is making less than $1 million.
Yeah. That's some crazy value.
That's nuts. Oh man. So moving right along, that was a game too. Any games last week that sparked your interest? I'll tell you one that got me. When is Robert Kraft going to fire his general manager in New England?
Yeah, because them boys, man, looking like the bad news bears out there.
I mean, they the only ones that making the Panthers look like a okay team. Even though they've won a game, but the Patriots lost to the New Orleans Saints 34-0, and that wouldn't be so bad. But the previous week they lost to the Cowboys 38-3. So they've given up over 70 points, 72-3 over the last 2 weeks. They benched Matt Jones. Both of those. He don't say he benched him. He say he just pulled him out because what was the point? And put in Zappy. And he's not letting them finish the games, but it's because the game has been finished before the fourth quarter. But yeah, they let the Saints put. So I would say, NFL, please, for the Panthers' sake, schedule the Patriots at least 6 games a year, please.
Man, Patriots fans are suffering right now.
What's going on with the Patriots? I listened to Stephen A. Smith yesterday. I think it was. He was talking to Shannon Sharp, and he brought up a stat that I thought was really interesting. He was talking about over the last, I want to say since 2011, I might have it wrong, that the GM has had a total of 2 all pros on his team. One was a punter and one was a punt returner. No receivers, no cornerbacks, no defensive tackles, no linemen at all. A punter and a punt returner.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
all pro.
it's when we were doing our breakdown of teams before the season started, I made the point, and you agreed with me, that New England just had no weapons from what we were looking at. They have no wide receivers.
None.
They have a running back who's okay, and they don't have a tight end at all.
Right.
So, I mean, I think you're seeing the results of that right now play out for you.
But I'm like, okay, but if you're going to be the coach and the GM, you got to know something about personnel. You got to give your quarterback a chance. You screwed him last year by trying to have Joe Judge and what's his name sit there and be the offensive coordinators back and forth. So you screwed him then. Then this year you basically say, well, I don't really have anybody for you to throw it to, but go do what you can do. But you're the guy in charge of personnel. And you're not doing anything. So it's almost like, bro, you riding this thing off the cliff, and Robert Kraft is just watching him do it. Like at some point, you got to say, Bill, you got to come to Bill and say, Bill, you've been a great coach, but we're going to take the GM roles and go in a different direction. And if Bill gives you a bunch of lip about it, say, well, you know what, we're going to have to take the head coach in a different direction. I mean, what you going to do?
I'm saying, man, yeah. I mean, I think we know now. A lot of people, when Brady was there was always this debate: is it more Brady? Is it more Belichick? Is this success more Brady? Is it success more Belichick?
Yeah, I think
we're seeing right now that success.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. Absolutely.
It's not even close.
It ain't even close. It ain't even close. Anthony says, first he talked about Denver. If the season ended right now, Denver would have a top 5 draft pick, Russell Wilson, staying, no other team eating that contract. No, I agree with you, Anthony. I think Denver is screwed for some time until that dead cap money that Russell Wilson had is a lot more palatable. Because you're right. Nobody's going to eat that contract, and he ain't giving anybody a reason to because he's putting on bad tape. There's no tape that Russell Wilson is putting out there to the other 31 NFL teams to make them go, you know what? He's the one piece that's keeping us from getting to the playoffs, getting us to the NFC, AFC championship game, and getting us to the Super Bowl. When you look at Russell Wilson, you're not going, that's that last piece that we need. There's nothing that he's putting on tape to make you think that, like how the Rams saw that Jared Goff, they thought couldn't get them to the promised land. They felt like Stafford could. You're not looking at Russell Wilson like that and going, we need to go get that guy. We need to give up 3 first-round picks for him so that we can get to the Super Bowl. Nobody sees that with Russell Wilson. So you're right. There's no quick fix to that because your $48 million quarterback ain't going nowhere no time soon. And then Anthony also says this might be Bill Belichick's last year. He won't get fired. He'll step down and go in the office as the GM. Oh, so basically, he gonna go Tampa Bay's route with like Bruce Arians, handing it off to Todd Bowles and go on upstairs. But see that I don't know because the GM part is the problem. If he goes to the office as the GM, hell, you might as well keep him on the field as the coach. The problem is the GM side of it. The problem isn't the coaching side because normally the GM gives the coach the personnel that he needs. The problem is in this scenario is Bill Belichick is giving him the personnel, but he ain't really giving him any personnel. He's giving it to himself. So he needs to remove himself as the GM. If I was to keep Bill Belichick, I'd keep him as the coach and let him go as the GM. If he says, well, I'd rather be the GM and the coach, hell no. Because you're not a good GM. That just doesn't make any sense. So if you keep him, if you take him off the field and keep him in his office as a GM, you're not adding by subtracting, you're subtracting by subtracting. Serious. But yeah, that was just a terrible game. Derek
Yeah,
Carr.
let's look at their roster, who they got right now.
All right. The Patriots.
Devontae Parker,
Yep.
one of the wideouts, doing nothing. Kendrick Bourne, another wideout, averaging 2 or 3 catches a game. Anybody heard from Juju Smith-Schuster this year? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in Kansas City, right?
So they're running back. Backing up him is the Ezekiel Elliott. They just don't have no firepower, man. Up and down the roster, you're seeing a lack of firepower.
Well, they have players, Rand, that if you're on the other side of the ball, there's nobody that scares you. There's nobody that you say on any given play, I got to account for that person. I got to look at where they are. Like again, when you play the 49ers, you have to literally say, okay, where's McCaffrey? Where's Samuel? Where's Ayuk? Where's Kittle? You got to sit there and know at all times where these guys are. Anthony, Curtis. Thanks, Curtis. Appreciate it. Anthony says Stevenson is good. But here's the problem with having Rhamondre Stevens and no passing game. All they're going to do is just load 8 in the box and dare you to beat and dare your quarterback to beat you with his arm. So you can take a pretty decent running back.
And I agree, Stevenson is good, but he's not a McCaffrey good that's going to be a game changer. He's not that.
Right. He's not. But because you're going to be able to limit him. How do you open up your running game? You got to have a good passing game, or you got to be able to run some RPOs. You got to be able to do some other things. If he's that good, you got to be able to put him out in space, not just line him up. Can he get a lot of screens? What other things can he do as a running back? Most running backs now that are, ask Najee Harris, you need a guy that's going to be able to get a lot of screens and get a lot of open space in the field to be have opportunities to make a guy miss, not just run north-south into a lineman and try to run through holes and stuff like that. You're going to need somebody that can sit there and do a lot of things for that team and be able to mix it up. Otherwise, you're not fully utilizing the guy. I don't know if that's his skill set, but just having him run north and south is not going to do anything because they're just going to load up the box on him. I just don't see that. But you're right. The Patriots just don't have the firepower. They don't have, to me, enough guys that can sit there and scare you on the other side and make you account for what they got going on. That was one of the games that I just laughed at because I just couldn't believe it. Another game that took me by surprise, Rand, was the Thursday night football game where it was announced, I guess, before the game that Dick Butkus had passed. Hall of Famer for the Bears. And then the Bears somehow took it out on the Commanders.
They took him behind the woodshed, man.
Anthony has a question for you. I'll bring it up after this one. But yeah, so Justin Fields puts on a 4-touchdown game, no interceptions, 15-29, 282. And aside from that, out of those 282 yards, 230 of them went to one DJ Moore.
God, man. We're cursed.
I know that sounds crazy. And he caught 3 touchdowns off of 8 receptions. But I will promise you this. As bad as that made me feel because we gave him up. But listen, he would have never done that in Carolina.
No.
He never would have done that. And let me be clear. He ain't going to do that for the rest of the season in Chicago.
Oh, no. Don't expect that every week.
So I know the Bears fans like, that's what we've been waiting on. That's our number 1 receiver.
No.
I know y'all like that. I know y'all saw that. As Kirk Cousins would say, you like that? like it, but don't expect it. It is not going to happen again. It's going to give you a little bit of hope, and then he's going to pull the rug from you. Hell, he may not have 1 reception in the next game. That's how spotty DJ Moore is. He will disappear on you. It will say he played all of the snaps and don't record nothing in the box. And you'll be like, what the hell happened? Where was he?
Where'd he go?
Where'd he go? Trust me, y'all, we done seen this before. We ain't never seen him go for 230, but we seen him have some really good games. And then the next couple of games, where DJ go? Where he at? Was he out there? Did he dress? Was he a healthy scratch? No, he played. Really? Yeah, he was out there.
Yeah, the water cooler is just funny to me sometimes because we have so many experts in the cooler, man. But, right before the game, I put out just a simple thing that Dick Butkus's death might fire up the Bears tonight,
Right.
and it had some people responding back talking about these young kids, the young players don't know who Dick Butkus is. It doesn't make any sense, or it's not going to make a difference. I think you see it made a difference, man.
Right.
Even though they might not know or have watched Dick Butkus play because they were not even born yet, a lot of people don't know the inner workings of the NFL. It is the player's responsibility to kind of know the history of the team to which he is signed to.
Mhm.
Because if that player is asked a question about the death of said Dick Butkus, that player needs to be ready to respond with an intelligent answer.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of talk around different teams when old players die. We saw it with Franco Harris when he passed away with Pittsburgh, and it fired up the young Pittsburgh Steelers team.
It did.
It makes a difference when something like that happens, when they lose a great like that right before a game happens.
Oh, I forgot about Anthony being a Washington fan. He said, as a Washington fan, who cares? Bears not doing this again next week. Watch. Oh, I believe you. This is their game. This was their time, but they actually showed up. At first, it was a primetime game. Nobody else plays on Thursday but one team, and they actually did what they were supposed to do. Trust me. I didn't see it coming. I picked the Commanders to win that game, Anthony. Hands down. I didn't even think it was going to be close. I thought Washington's defense was going to put Justin Fields on his tail all night long. They simply just did not do that, or they didn't do it enough for it to even matter. So I get it. I just think that the Bears played some very inspired football. And the Commanders, I mean, Sam Howell, he threw for 388 yards. He threw 51 times, 37 of them he connected on. You just didn't really have a rushing game. Howell led the team in rushing with 4 runs for 19 yards. Brian Robinson, 6 runs for 10 yards. Everything was in the air for the Commanders. You did get some sacks on Justin Fields. Looks like 2.5 to be exact. So there were some things like that were going on, but at the end of the day, man, the Bears, there was a different energy behind the Bears, and people can try to downplay the whole Buckets effect. But like Rand said, when you saw Franco Harris, you could definitely see the Steelers went a whole nother gear, that this just was not going to be your game. Playing them, because it was just the right not somebody's death, but it was just the right time to play that team. And you're right. You may not see them get that all year. That was their first win of the season, and it may be just a few. The Commanders, I still look at it as a team that, depending on what goes on with Dallas, they could potentially be the number 2 team in the NFC East. I still see that in them. But they got to clean up some things and things like that. But they just caught the right team on the wrong day. And I think that's really what it comes down to. But that was a heck of an inspired game. Leading into the Carolina Panthers game, where the Panthers, we knew they were going to lose to Detroit, or at least I did. I didn't have any expectations of this. It's still the way that they lose that continues to get to me. Anthony says, random question: are the Panthers tanking for Marvin Harrison Jr.? And again, Anthony will bring up the fact that they can't be, because they don't have a first round pick next year. I did see on one of the web magazines, I think it's called Cat Crave or something like that, where it brought up the question that we had talked about, and the article was titled, is it time to trade Brian Burns?
Yeah.
Because Frank Reich had said something about um, Frank Reich had said something about uh, uh, that um, uh, Brian Burns deserves better because it's obvious that the team has put on hold his contract extension talks. Um, and that's a head scratcher because if you wait until the end of the season, if you plan on keeping him, his value is only going to go up even higher. Every game that you let him play and he still has a good showing in those games, it's only driving the price even more. So if you don't want to pay what you're paying him now, you damn sure ain't gonna want to pay him what his ask is going to be at the end of the year because it's only going to go up. This time last year, they had turned down offers for 2 first-round picks for this dude. Oh no, we're gonna keep Brian Burns. Brian Burns, the only guy on the team that we ain't gonna give up. Hell, we even give up McCaffrey, and they did, but they turned down offers for Brian Burns. So you're in one sense communicating to Brian Burns, we want you here for the long haul. Then when it gets time to extend his contract, you don't give him a contract extension. So now at this point, you don't have a first round pick because you gave it away to get Bryce Young. Now, if you are going to move yourself back up into the first round of next year's draft, the biggest carrot, the biggest asset that you have on your team is Brian Burns. Jermaine says Steve Smith deserves better. Brian Burns played for the Ravens at the end of his career too. Funny. That's true. Well, a lot of them deserve better. We thought C-Mac deserved better, and he's getting better right now. So a lot of times we're holding guys back because we're just not ready for what they can bring to our team. We're wasting Brian Burns' talent away because what's the point of all of that special ability that he has when we can't sit there and keep the chains moving on offense? Defense has to keep going out there, getting the ball back for the Panthers and get the ball back for the Panthers. Rand, I did see Bryce Young throw a little bit more in this game. I did see him locate receivers a little bit better in this game. People talk about not having receivers, but Alan Thielen had 11 receptions for 107 yards. Adam Thielen has actually been doing well when it comes to just production.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't have anybody, they just don't have enough. They just don't have enough guys. But Alan Thielen right now, if I'm looking at this right, is 4th in the league in receiving. No,
Yeah.
that's not. Well, no, I'm sorry. He's got 4th in the league in receptions, but he's still up there in receiving yards too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's no bum. He's playing pretty good.
Not at all.
He's playing pretty good.
Yeah,
He's
he's
still
playing
game.
damn good. For
Yeah.
people talking about he can't get open this and can't get open that. I mean, he looks open to me. The thing about it is just Bryce was not hitting him early on, and now he's kind of finding him. The thing about Bryce Young, though, he's going to have to quit turning the ball over. That's number one.
Big
And
time.
then number two for him, he's going to have to get these yards when they matter, not after the game is already over with and defenses are letting up and going into
They playing shell coverage.
shell coverages and prevent defenses. He's got to get these yards in quarter one, quarter two, and quarter three, and not being an all-star quarterback in quarter four. I know that doesn't really make sense because you do want to have an all-star type quarterback in quarter number four, but you don't want to be coming from behind to get those numbers.
Right. Yeah, those empty calories because now you got to sit there and air it out and stuff like that because you're in a hole. Right. Basically, Dak Prescott. I want to still see him go through his progressions. He's still rushing his progressions. He's still not climbing the pocket like he should. Even taller quarterbacks have to climb the pocket because defensive linemen can be all the way up to 6'7", 6'8", and when they stick their hands up in the air, even if you're 6'4", 6'5", it can be pretty hard to see over these guys. So you still want to be able to, when that pocket gets so close and there's so much traffic going on in that pocket, it gives you two reasons to do that. You're able to step into the pocket and get better passing lanes, or you may, once you step into that pocket, realize that the cornerbacks and the safeties have backed so far off trying to guard your receivers and your tight ends that there's at least 8 to 10 yards of open space in front of you. And you may be able to just go for that first down or get most of it back. The other thing that's killing me with the Panthers are the penalties. And these pre-snap penalties. That is a discipline issue. Again, they added another 7 accepted penalties in this game for 45 yards. A lot of and sometimes it's not how many penalties they have, it's when they get them.
Yeah, it kills drives.
Does the penalty take you from a third and really short to a third and long? Does the penalty take you out of field goal range?
Yes.
Those types of things. Does the penalty sit there and add 10 yards to the end of a play? Does that penalty sit there and mean that you got to kick from this instead of this, and now you're giving up field position? All those types of things with penalties just kill you. You're playing against yourself. Miles Sanders can't hold on to the damn ball. Why are y'all not getting Chuba Hubbard more carries in this game? I know
it's interesting you said that.
Got the money, but Chuba Hubbard is the one that's getting a better production a lot of times.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because I'm now reading that Miles Sanders apparently has a shoulder injury. So we'll see. Right. I didn't see anything wrong with his shoulder at the end of that game, man. They are a trip with that.
Stay away from Bryce Young, man, with all these invisible injuries. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we might be seeing more Chuba this week in Miami.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. But see, here's the problem. Miami gonna be up 70-0 on us. Chuba ain't running the ball at that point. Now they may throw some screens out of the backfield, but we're gonna be down 70 points in the first quarter. Man, I'm telling you, I got Tua, Jalen, and Cheetah on my Facebook Kings team. Whoever is playing against me this week, I'm gonna apologize in advance for the ass whooping you about to ensue. Because I'm starting all three of them. And I might even sit there and try to make it competitive. I might put everybody else on the bench. I just run with them three. I'm gonna beat you with them three.
CJ Henderson ain't slept all week long.
Oh God. CJ is gonna get burnt. Oh, he gonna be crispy.
Oh my God, man.
Anthony says, thinking crazy out loud. You think the Panthers are waiting for Burns to get injured to give him a deal because trade value won't be that high? No. It had to be a catastrophic injury. And why would you sign damaged goods? You know, that would be a crazy strategy to say that you wait for a player to get hurt so that then you can sign him. That is crazy. Jermaine says, I'd like to see Young climb the bench and hand the real starting quarterback a Gatorade.
You better give him a boost.
And I was about to say, at this point, you know where Bryce sits on the bench because there's phone books right in front of it.
Oh.
Oh God, I'm sorry. That was too easy.
That was a good one.
Oh gosh. Hey, I should have had that clip where on Friday when they go, damn.
I know.
Oh God. I did post on my Facebook, and I hate saying this. I was like, I've never rooted for my own quarterback to get hurt. But because I think that as long as he's healthy and available, they're going to play him no matter what. And if they continue to do that, then they're basically saying that we have no interest in being competitive this season. I read another article where it says Frank Reich is refusing to call this a rebuilding year. I'm like, has he coached any games this year then? The hell do you call that?
I'm saying, man.
If this
But
ain't a rebuilding year, then you would have had Andy Dalton start and Bryce Young learn.
or you would have kept Andy Dalton in at the point where he lost the Seattle game and they were 0-3 or whatever, and see if he could be able to salvage the season. Now that the
Correct.
Panthers are 0-6, and yes, I said 6 because 6 is damn sure gonna happen.
Oh God.
There's no point. There's no point. You cannot salvage the season. I don't see them putting Andy Dalton in and him all of a sudden going 10-1 and putting the Panthers back in the mix for the playoffs. I don't see that happening at all.
No,
They're going to be sticking with Bryce and let Bryce take his lumps, and we're going to be forced to watch it, unfortunately.
No, that's it. That's the absolute truth, because you're getting further and further back in the division. When you look at the NFC South right now, with the Panthers being 0-5, you've got the Falcons and the Saints. 0-6. You got the Falcons and the Saints at 3-2. The Buccaneers are at 3-1. So everybody's 3 games ahead of you right now. They're going to be 4 games ahead of you next week, no matter what. And you've already lost to the Falcons, and you've already lost. They already lost to the Saints too, right?
They did.
Yeah, lost to the Saints, and the Buccaneers, didn't they?
They did not lose. They haven't played Tampa yet.
They haven't played Tampa yet, so yeah, they would have to go on some crazy run at this point to be able to back into the South, and then you would need help from whoever's playing the teams against the other folks in your division to just go and start beating them left and right too. So there would have to be a lot of things, but you would basically be backing into it. So I don't want to see that. Jermaine said they're going to ruin Bryce Young by playing him. I agree, because I just think that the transition from college to the NFL is not always on the same curve. Yes, we joke a lot about how CJ Stroud seems to be doing a lot better job with it right now, and some players just do acclimate better to the NFL than others. Even and it doesn't mean that when they hang up their cleats, Bryce Young may end up having had a better career. You never know.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is determinative of, sometimes you have to he's a competitive kid, and you would expect him to be. He's not going to bench himself. He's not going to say this is too much for me. He's going to accept the challenge. But is that what's best for the team and for the organization, especially an organization that has had such a long history of losing? He has to understand, hey, we want you for the long run. We don't want to just sit there and have you take all these lumps right now. We want to sit there and put a team together that you'll be able to sit there and gel with and be able to take the reins over. But again, I will say, as I always have said, there's nothing to make me believe that if you watched him and Andy Dalton in training camp and in OTAs and all these things, to tell me that the best person is starting on the team right now.
No,
There's nothing that's going to make me believe that. If
Nope.
if it's coming from Frank Reich, who doesn't believe that this is a rebuilding year, I ain't gonna believe nothing else you say, bro.
You know what, man? I'm extremely disappointed in Frank Reich so far. And when he got hired for the job, I was the one out there taking his back and saying it was the correct hire, because he's supposed to be this offensive coach, and he's, fixed quarterbacks in the past. So far, I've seen a lot of traits of a rookie coach, and he's far from a rookie coach, man. I'm reading something today where what's the receiver 88 for the Panthers? I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
Is it
Terrace Marshall?
Yeah, I read that too. About Terrace Marshall didn't know why he didn't play, and Reich was like, "Yeah, that was my fault." And I'm like,
he forgot to make him active. You forgot to make him active. How can you do that? How can you do that?
They asked Terrace Marshall why he didn't play, and he says, "I have no idea." And Frank Reich was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, he forgot to make him active. And then the game before that, Frank Reich sent a play into Bryce Young to run, in which shit. Oh, sorry about that. Which what's our number one receiver we got from Minnesota? Yes. Thielen was supposed to be the number one option.
Mm-hmm.
Thielen was off the field sitting beside him.
Oh, I ain't heard that one. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. That's crazy.
Rookie mistakes, man.
Yeah, that's a rookie mistake. Anthony says Bryce Young has been sacked 12 times and it's only week 6. That's not good. No, what's not good is how many of them sacks turn into fumbles.
Yeah, because once he gets hit, you got to kind of hold your breath and be like, "Oh God, is that ball gonna come out?" Because
And
he ain't strong enough to hold on to it.
You talk about stature and everything, and the ball just as big as he is. So, but when you talk about and when you look at his frame, and you see how these guys sit there and they do the peanut punches and stuff like that. So a lot of these guys have been around long enough. They know that when you got that ball out to your side, or how many people you think haven't scouted the fact that if you get close enough to Bryce Young, you may be able to punch the ball out of his hands because he ain't strong enough to hold on to it. That shows up in scouting reports. So when you talk about a guy coming in, like when Zach Wilson first came in with his little frame and he still has it, I'm like, man, they're gonna make sure that they come after you. I was really surprised when they called a roughing the passer on Bryce, but then again, I thought about it. And I'm like, they looking at that little dude and this big lineman, which I feel for these linemen that sack guys and they act like you can control how your body gonna shift on top of a player.
Right.
Like they didn't drive him into the ground, but did his full weight land on him? Yeah, he's freaking 300 pounds. Of course, his weight's gonna land on him. Where else is it gonna go?
Yeah, that's a
What are you
difficult
gonna do?
thing.
What was this? The Matrix? What are you gonna just pause in the air on him? I don't know what these refs expect these guys to do. He's supposed to go in there and hit him and play through the whistle, but because he's the quarterback, somehow that means you're supposed to levitate over him. I guess. I don't know what they expect him to do. I mean, they didn't drive him into the ground; they knocked him down. There was one play where he sat there and he backed up so far when he blew on him. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna blow a whistle on that. I'm glad they did. But I was like, Lord have mercy. It was just crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Your Steelers.
Hey.
Oh my God. You know.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm gonna ask you because normally when I think about the Steelers, there's a team identity. When you think about the Steelers, you think about smash mouth defense, ball control, running the ball, discipline, tough, gritty. What the hell is the identity of this team?
Are the Steelers right now?
Yes.
Defense first. That's it.
Second,
because offensively, they are a complete mess right now.
Is Kenny Pickett the long-term answer?
Sorry?
Is Kenny Pickett the long-term answer?
I think Kenny Pickett is the long-term answer. Right now, you just got a OC that's terrible at doing his job. Matt Canada is awful. He's just awful.
He is awful. Yes.
He's awful. Ever since he's taken over at OC, the Steelers are averaging 18 points a game.
Wow.
They are so lucky they got Mike Tomlin right now because they should be one of these teams that are constantly dwelling in the bottom of the AFC North. But because of Tomlin being the brilliant coach that he is, they're constantly fighting for playoff position and being first in the NFC North. And they have this really good aggressive defense that doesn't hurt either. But yeah, I think Kenny Pickett is the long-term answer. I think he has the weapons right now. He has Deontay Johnson that's out. That's been very hurtful for them because he's the main receiver that could get separation right now. And they also got Freiermuth out of the game. He's been, I think, his concussion or maybe chest or something like that. The number one tight end. That's a big weapon for Kenny too. So
that's a good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Now he did connect with Pickens 6 times for 130, 21.7 yards per catch and a touchdown. So really good there. Najee Harris had 14 carries, but only 37 yards. So 2.6 per.
Problem.
Yeah. That's that. You know, when I think about the Steelers in the past, you always think about, okay, their run game always sets up the pass. Where you can, and reason is because you just can't load the box, because if you load the box, then now you got a lot of one-on-one coverages on some of their really, really good receivers. And they'll just burn you like that.
Yeah.
But now teams are basically saying to Pickett, we want to see how much you can throw this ball. He proved that he could get it to Pickens in this game. I think the thing with Kenny Pickett that I want to see a little bit more of is consistency. I know that he's missing certain weapons and things like that. But when a team is going to scout against you and say, okay, when you don't have this and you don't have this, are you able to sit there and take some of these guys that they don't know and turn them into threats and things like that, and really, really being able to move the ball down the field? Take that defense that's so spectacular, not leave them hanging. But they found a way, man, to beat the Ravens, and I would say found a way, but it would be more accurate to say that Lamar Jackson got his money, but Lamar Jackson has not turned his team into anything differently than he did before he got the money.
No, and he's not going to.
He ain't going to. And we knew that. We were the main ones saying he ain't that dude.
Nope. Mm-mm.
He is not that dude.
He's Mr. Consistency in the early part of the year, but when it gets to time where it really matters, falls off a map or gets hurt.
Absolutely. Oh, Anthony says, thank you, Randall. TJ Watt is saving my fantasy team. Average 32 points almost every week. Oh, the Steelers defense.
Watt is an animal. He's an animal. Just watching him one-on-one with left tackles throughout these first couple of games, it's almost unfair what he's doing to him.
I was about to use that word. It is. It's unfair.
He ragdolls him. He really does.
He's like a grown man out there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's true. And then Anthony also says Najee Harris is on my list to be cut. He's killing my fantasy team. Yeah. Well, yeah, because even though he's technically a RB1, he's giving you RB3 numbers, like the guy that you would have in when your other guys are on a bye.
Yep.
And you just got to have a position filler.
Yeah, he has no explosiveness. I don't know what is going on. It hadn't been no injury or anything like that, but all those big runs that we saw when he was in college just ain't there no more.
Yeah. Even in his first year, he was a lot more explosive, but it just fell off the cliff. I mean, even Zeke gave you more production longer than that. But see, that unfortunately isn't going to help the whole conversation when it comes to running backs. Even though for some reason the Colts decided to go ahead and give Jonathan Taylor his extension right before the game last week.
I saw that. Gave him a little bit of I'm sorry about all this bonus money too.
which kind of perplexed me because Zach Moss, who you're paying significantly less, gave you 21 carries, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 70 fantasy points. I'm sorry.
Zach Moss has been killing it. So now the Colts got a dilemma, right? Because the dude that they're not paying is the one that's tearing it up right now. And the one that they just paid, well, we'll have to wait and see what he does. But Pittsburgh is also in that same situation because their undrafted running back, Jaylen Warren, is threatening Najee Harris right now because he's just playing better.
Exactly. So, and that's going to be the question. Are you going to use them as a 1-2 combo duo? Like the Jets aren't doing with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook? Or are you going to end up basically using one as trade bait to increase the value?
Right.
Because are you going to be able to because if you now throw Jonathan Taylor into the mix, Zach Moss has shown you he can handle the load and the carries, but now you're going to reduce his carries.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what he's probably getting paid is based on incentives for the amount of carries and everything else. And now you're going to reduce them because now you got Taylor back in.
And you're breaking his rhythm too. Running backs get into a rhythm. They love it.
Correct. Right. And the more they pound, the more they pound. Well, man, we've had a whole show already go through. Any games this coming week that you're interested in?
You know what? I went through the schedule, man. It is really not a good schedule.
It really isn't, because there's gonna be a bloodbath tomorrow. The Chiefs and the Broncos. That's gonna be crazy.
I was paying attention to the primetime games, and we got 2 duds coming up, but I think the one, if I had to be interested in a game, it was probably the Chargers and Cowboys on Monday night.
Same. You're right. A lot of these matchups just seem lopsided. Colts and the Jaguars might be an interesting game. The Jaguars did end up beating the Bills this past week in England, so that may end up being a decent game. It will be interesting to see how the Commanders bounce back against the Falcons. That's going to be a game to watch. I do want to see how the Saints and the Texans square up. CJ Stroud has been putting up some decent numbers. Want to see how he does against a team with a really, really good defense. The Lions and the Bucks. I just want to see Aiden Hutchinson knock the crap out of Baker Mayfield. Even though I got Mike Evans on my fantasy league, I will take an L for that. I don't care. And then you're right. Sunday night football, the Bills and the Giants. Really? NFL. Y'all need to make that a flex game. Have somebody else do
it. Man, come on.
Stupid. Eagles versus Jets defense. Anthony, you're absolutely right. I just had my hand on that 425 game, Eagles and the Jets. It'll be interesting to see what the defense can do, but you got to remember the Eagles got a decent defense too, and Zach Wilson is prone to throw interceptions, so that could cancel it out. Plus, the Eagles have shown a better ability to keep the ball on the ground and run. Breece Hall had that one home run that gave him those 177 yards, but it'll be interesting to see if the Eagles get too far ahead in the game and the Jets have to play catch up. That could neutralize anything that Breece Hall can do for you. So that'll be interesting too. I know Bradbury is going to be on Garrett Wilson, and he's going to be waiting for Zach Wilson to sit there and try to throw it to him. So I still like the Eagles in that game. But yeah, the biggest one for me is going to be them Cowboys and the Chargers. Richard Sherman had a good stat today that said every team that played the 49ers last year, the next game they lost.
Well, because too banged up.
They're too banged up. They still hurt. They're still butt hurt. So we're gonna see if Dak gonna be butt hurt, if Micah gonna still be butt hurt about people wearing t-shirts under their jersey and everything else. So, and the last thing I'll say before we get out, hey y'all, Kendrick Colt rocked the house at Brickyard this past weekend.
Oh, brother, thank you so much for coming. I forgot to say that. I was gonna leave the show off with that before I had my cowboy idea, but thank you for coming out and filming.
Absolutely, it was a great show as always. Y'all go to Kendrick Colt, check them out on all their social media. I will make sure that I have something on the show in the future that you guys will be able to see all their contact information. But these guys always put a good show together. And I had did a short live, and one of my friends on my page said one of my favorite local bands. And I was like, oh, really? So you guys are known out there, apparently.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool, but had a good time. Great band out there. They do a lot of good alt rock and stuff like that. So you guys check them out. We'll be putting together a promo video for them really, really soon. I got so much footage. I'm still going through it. Absolutely crazy.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you much.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. You guys, I want y'all to have a good week. Good time out there in fantasy. Oh, Lord. I hit my wrong button. Good time out there in fantasy land and everything. Y'all take care. We will definitely see y'all next week. Peace.